So, welcome to Crux Radio. This is Sai, and I'm here with Joe P.
Hello, what's going on?
Not much. I've been really excited to finally get to talk to you, man. I've been following your journey basically since like your first video blew up on TikTok. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
for Off My Mind.
yeah.
So it's been some time coming. I've been really excited to finally get to reach out to you and get a call with you.
Awesome.
I know
Yeah, I'm stoked.
I know you're getting your spring tour started in April, which is really exciting.
Yeah,
Your first headline.
yes, yes. Very nervous, kind of, but I'm like excited but kind of nervous because I was just saying before, actually, like it's weird because now there's people like when you open, it's very like, oh, no one expects anything, so you can't lose. You just like as long as you're like okay, or it just doesn't matter. They're not
Yeah,
going to see you, so you don't feel there's no responsibility to be good. It's more like
yeah,
you just want to be really good to win them over, which is very different than like, hey, there's people like waiting to see you because they already like you. Like they already are saying you're good. That's
yeah,
weird. You know what I mean? I don't,
yeah,
so I've never had to do it without like punching up a little. You know what I mean? So it's
yeah.
kind of
There's
it's
a little
kind of
bit of
weird.
more no, more nerves to it.
Yeah, yeah. There's just like a different responsibility, a different weight to it. Even though it's the exact same thing. Like just play the songs, do put on a
Hmm.
show. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I assume for your tour you'll be playing your newest EP probably in full
Mhm.
for the most part, and then
Yeah,
some from Emily Can Sing.
yeah, exactly.
Are you going to be having your own openers?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of actually figuring all that out. Probably just a single opener will be the thing. Just have one band play before me. So yeah, we're
Sweet.
still like trying to figure it all out.
Yeah.
It's funny because again, I've always been the person trying to be the opener. So I'm just like,
Hmm.
oh, it's whenever say yes to everyone. I don't
Yeah. It's a different
know.
perspective now, kind
Yeah.
of understanding the flip side of things.
Yep.
Um, One of my first questions I had for you was I know for Off My Mind you just released your newest version. I know you have a few, kind of the original. You have your acoustic version, which I
Yeah.
love. I love all of your acoustic versions of your songs. They're so passionate and have so much soul behind them.
Thanks, man.
Um and with Kay Flay on this one, which was really exciting. How did that happen? How'd that come about getting her on this track?
It was, we were kind of like talking about, oh, wouldn't it be cool to release something for Off My Mind with like some type of female vocalist and do like a duet type thing. And I wanted to do like I actually originally wanted to do like from the ground up, like completely different recording. Like like start from zero and like go into a studio with someone and like properly like start over and kind of make its own version, change the key, whatever is necessary for the other
Mhm.
person. But that's like my dream world of like having unlimited time that just isn't real. Uh,
Yeah.
so I was like, all right, I guess I can't do that. Plus, like anyone we were trying to get in contact with is in LA or Nashville or something because I'm in New
Hmm.
Jersey. No one's in New Jersey. Um, so I was like, okay, we're gonna have to do this like remote. You know what I mean? And I don't know, like between people that I know and stuff, and names going around. Her name came up, and I already knew of her obviously, and was like checking out her voice, trying to like think of it in that way. And I was like, oh, this could be really cool. It could add kind of like an edge to it that it didn't originally have. You know what I mean? Like a little, like the heart, more rock or like alternative rock edge that it
Hmm.
didn't really have before. So yeah, then I talked to her for a bit, and she's super cool because she records everything like herself and does a ton of
Yeah.
like producing and stuff like that on her own, which I love. So it made the remote thing kind of
Much easier.
because you can get into some weird stuff like that where you get stems back from people of vocals and like they recorded them like backwards in the wrong way in the microphone, like,
Mhm.
and it's just kind of crazy. And I just didn't want. I was already like weirded out enough by the fact that I'm not going to be in the studio with the person who's doing this. So that was a great thing when I found out that she's like, oh, like, I can just do things like any time of day because I do everything myself anyway, and I can send you stuff and we can bounce things back and forth and try different things. So that's kind of what happened where everyone else that came up, it was a little more like they're gonna have one chance to do it because they have to like rent out a studio and then that's
Hmm.
you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
it's like, all right, this is kind of perfect. This is like all the stars are aligning for this to be the person. And yeah, so and then she
Yeah.
stepped in and I was like, this is perfect, cool, and got it mixed and that was it.
That definitely makes a lot of sense. I'm sure because I know you're basically entirely self-produced. You mix and master you write all your music.
So
So I'm sure you
the only
have.
thing I don't mix and master because like I'll do all like the recording and the writing and the producing as far as like being in the studio and doing everything. Like I'm at
Mhm.
Atlanta right now, actually, like in the studio.
Yeah.
But when it comes to mixing, yeah, that's the one thing where I'm like, I think it's important for that me to give it off to someone else and get my ears away from it and my brain because it's like you just get so in one groove that like you
Yeah.
need to step back. You need some type of outside feedback. And with no producer or engineer or anyone else in the studio, really, it's kind of insane. Like it's kind of hard. So I give it to this guy Jack Mason in LA, and he kills it. And I can go back and forth with him and all that stuff. It's really great. And then mastering is another guy named Oscar. So
Okay.
yeah, I like that's the part of where I'm like I like to get away from that, and I
You do
try to
need to
get into
step away.
mixing. It's just like very mixing gets into the very mathematical side of things and the very like
A
scientific
little bit
side of
more, yeah, a little bit more tedious for you.
yeah. Like engineering, it's like point the microphone at the drum kit and play the drums for the most
Yeah.
part. You know what I mean? But yeah, so most of the time though, yeah, it's all kind of it starts totally self-produced. Yeah.
Yeah, which is really cool. I know obviously you're multi-instrumentalist. You do play a lot of instruments
Mhm.
and record them all yourself. At what points did you start picking up all these different instruments? I know you started with guitar. I think you
Yeah.
said it at one point at like 8 years old.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. When I was little, yeah, I think it was like guitar, obviously, and then sing. It was all everything came as a necessity.
mhm,
Because it was like I would play guitar, and it was like, man, I really wish someone could sing over this. And then I'd be like, I'll just sing. And then I would
mhm,
do that and be like, man, I hear a cool drum beat in my head. I wish I could. And you can find people to do all these things, but it's
of course.
now you're relying on people. Now you're, you know what I mean? It's one more thing that can kind of get in the way of the idea in your head and the thing that comes out of the speakers. So
Mhm,
I just try to do the best I can with eliminating those steps because if it's just me straight to the drumsticks, straight into the drums, um, that's the closest, at least, to get the idea out. I'm like huge
yeah,
on that. Like even if I don't end up recording drums on the record version of it,
you get your
when I'm making
concept.
it, yeah, when I'm making the stuff, I'm like, I just want to get the idea out and be able to like it's like the idea of humming something for someone to sing. You know, I want to be able
Mhm,
to hum everything, every instrument. And if it ends up being the take that I use because it just sounds good, then I'll
mhm.
do that. But yeah, I don't know. And bass guitar is like you can just if you play guitar, you play bass
Yeah, which
as
much
long as you
easier.
don't, yeah, there's a little different thing to it, but like, or it's huge, it's actually very different. But um, you can kind of get by and figure it out. It's the same kind of coordination. So it's more about the phrasing and things like that that you have to start paying attention to with bass. But yeah, so I try to do everything myself, and then at the same time, just like the mixing and mastering, like there's
Mhm.
times where it makes sense to call in like my friend Chris to play drums because the feel he brings to it is like I can't. No one else I know
Can't
can.
capture it.
Yeah, so it's you need other people for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, which is yeah, really really interesting. You never had a proper like vocal coach or anything. You just kind of started to learn on your own, did you?
Yeah, I sang just, like anyone can just start singing. And then I did go to this woman, Elisa in New Jersey when I was really, really young. And it was cool because she taught me how to breathe and do those things, but it was kind of just going in one ear and out the other because like I don't know, I just
That's
was like,
good.
I'm in a band, like I want to just play in the garage, and just start singing. But more importantly, she just the biggest lessons I learned was like confidence in singing. Like the ability to just go for it is like
Hmm.
99% of singing, and then 1% of it is like the actual technique.
Actually, ability.
Yeah. But literally, I would say that much percentage is what it takes because she'd have her next lesson coming in and like make me sing for them. Like it was just like
Yeah.
it would just be like a kid and his mom or something. And I was like, I
Hmm.
don't even know these people. And she was like, yeah. Like this is what's gonna make you better though. And she was right because as I would do it, each
Yeah.
time you do it, you're no longer afraid of that tier of like anxiety. You know what I mean? Like you're not
Yeah.
afraid of that stage fright. So yeah, and then it just you just practice a lot. That's it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Um, something speaking of you being in a band with Deal Casino for some who may not know, I had a question about that
Yeah.
because I know it was a while ago. You put out a TikTok for your song Happy People,
Mhm.
where I remember the camera was like an aerial kind of point of you on the drums. And I was like,
Yeah, yeah,
where the hell is this song? I was
yeah.
like, I love this so much.
Oh,
And
that's
I
cool.
found the version of it with Deal Casino. And then
Oh,
we
cool.
released it on French Blonde.
Right.
And I was like, wait, I've heard this before. So I was wondering, why did you end up re-recording it for yourself and putting it out on that EP?
So a lot of the stuff with the band versions of songs and all that stuff was like I would like write a full song by myself, make a full demo of it like I do now and everything. And then you take it to the band and then we go record it. So the only
Mhm.
thing that is, and that's kind of what gets weird with bands is like you have to give up that control because it's like the bass guy needs to play the bass and like the drummer needs to play the drums or else you're not the band anymore.
Mhm.
So there's these weird kind of things that you just have to do. And then I would end up, like I said before, like there's a lot of those steps in between the idea and what I hear at the end of the day. And by the time it was done, I was like, this isn't really the idea that I had in my head, but it was more important to like sacrifice that and keep the band like happy and like have a good band and everything
Mhm.
and the camaraderie be strong than for me to be like, this is exactly what I heard in my head. This is great. So that's the other new thing with the solo thing that's been great is like, let me see what it's like if I just me doing this all the way start to finish and I know it's the version I wanted.
Yeah.
So that second version is more like what I always heard in my head. Now it's actually
Okay. That's
yeah,
really cool.
yeah.
How long were because I know at the beginning of COVID is when you guys kind of separated. How long were
Yeah.
you guys working together as a collective?
Um, I mean, we really started when we were like in like seventh grade or eighth grade or something crazy like that. So
Mhm.
I don't know, probably yeah, I mean all of high school and all of college. So like it was probably like 8 years or so of just like nonstop, just yeah, like being together and like doing this band thing.
Mhm.
And it's cool, but it's just like, yeah, there's certain things where it's like when you start something that young and like literally like eighth grade, and
Yeah.
you keep doing with those people, if it's meant to be, that is amazing. But at the same time, it's like it might also just sometimes be a situation of like, that's just who you met when you were little. So
Yeah.
I mean, if it doesn't work out, it's like, well, maybe it wasn't supposed to. It was just like that chapter, like that era had to happen of like being together and
Of
planning all the time.
yeah. It
It's
was
interesting. Yeah,
yeah, a really good learning experience that kind of
yeah,
led you to where you are now and kind
totally.
of understanding what you wanted out of it for yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I had a really interesting question.
Mm,
So I was doing obviously more research preparing for this,
mm,
and I never recognized until recently on your debut album, Emily Can't Sing, and then with French Blonde, you kind of have this reoccurring interlude of Emily Can't Sing,
yeah,
which I think is really cool. And you mention a little bit of the nature that goes into music and kind of wanting to embrace it and capture it.
right.
Um, do you think that like interlude will kind of be a reoccurring theme on other albums or like future
Yeah,
projects?
yeah. I think so. I mean, the first time I did it, it was easy to do because I was like, well, I'll just throw this little voice memo on this like first EP. It's like the first EP to me is like demos anyway, so it kind of is like okay. And then I had another chance to do it again, so I did just naturally like she was singing and I recorded it, whatever.
Hmm.
And when I was like, oh, I wonder if I should put this on the next thing. And I was like, oh, I kind of like it. And so now, and I think that's also why I like it. It was super natural the way it happened. So it's like I'm cool with it. It doesn't feel too
Yeah, it
forced.
wasn't. Yeah, I didn't feel like you just like sat your girlfriend in a booth and you're like, "Hey, I need you to like act for me and like pretend you're
Yeah.
doing this thing."
Right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's a super organic thing. And I think it's nice to throw in the middle of things because it does kind of like as pretentious as music can be and like singing and being an artist and all that stuff. I
Hmm.
love this nice like regulator that sticks in the middle of all of it. That's like it's all
Yeah,
good. Like the most important part is like it doesn't matter. Like it's just like keep things super down to earth and then the next song could be this really intense thing, but like I like
yeah,
having that there. It kind of grounds the whole thing for me.
yeah. I love that too. That like kind of transition into, I feel like what is almost like your hit song in a way, like the most
Sure.
memorable from that project. It transitions into that in a very natural way.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Um, for for some reason, it came to my mind. I was like, do you think there'd be any chance you'd get your girlfriend to sing for you on a song?
I have. She actually is on All Day I Dream About in the second verse when it goes like, let's do dun 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 in the hotel room. I couldn't hit that high note at the end, that
Mhm.
so and she literally cannot sing. So I was like, but I needed her like tone because when I pitch shifted
Yeah.
my voice up, it sounded very fake and not real. So I at least needed her to be in that register and then I could like pitch shift it. So she did
Oh,
okay. And then I just like auto tuned it and like nudged some things around and made it work. But there's one line, yeah, where it's like
that's really cool.
so the higher octaves in the second verse of that song are is her.
That's really cool. I
Yeah.
I think the little behind the scenes of that goes into music is really interesting of like the subtle things that you remember as the artist,
Oh
especially
yeah.
as a producer, is a lot of people don't know like what samples go into everything or
Right.
what sounds are going into it. And
Totally.
something like that, people would never be able to pick up on. But it's
No.
really cool
Yeah.
because like as a producer, you have to get creative with how you make sounds and just
Totally. Yeah.
figure out like how do I get to this place? Like you become a problem solver.
Right. And that's the benefit of recording in your basement is like your dog and your girlfriend are right there. So it's like you can do stuff like record a bark or like her like singing a line or whatever because and then it's weird because it's one of those things that it's proof that it's authentic, at least to me in that moment, because I'm like, oh, no one else like has this exact scenario. Where when you go to a nice studio like I'm at now, you have to work twice as hard because this is like it's a more sterile environment where everything is all set
Mhm.
up for you and ready to go, and like there's no excuses, like everything's perfect. Where
Yeah.
so you
It's
get
like a
you
more professional setting where you're like
yeah
you have to
right
be in the mindset of it.
right. And then you want someone to walk in and like cough, but it's like a perfect studio and there's a light saying that you're recording so no one walks in. And
Hmm.
it's like, so you start removing those opportunities for the kind of like special little authentic moments to happen. Yeah. So you just gotta, I always try to, that's why I record all my vocals no matter what. I record them at home just to
Hmm.
know that I did it there, like more than anything. So yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So do you have like a whole like soundproof room or anything in your basement, or is it just kind of like you just
Yeah.
have a set up half the time that's just
It's,
like,
yeah. I mean, if you would look at TikToks and stuff, anytime in my basement, I did like put insulation up and all the like soundproof stuff.
hmm.
Um, but really it's like a basement with like cement floors and exposed ceilings and stuff, which are actually really good for audio.
Huh.
And yeah, like carpets in the ground and stuff like that, you know, and microphones and everything. So, yeah, I built some stuff to make it as like professional as it can be, but also it's like the hot water heater comes on and it's like all that is for nothing because now there's a
Yeah.
giant heater ripping in the background. So I didn't get too lost in it, but that's also what's great about it is like you don't
Mhm.
really in that setting you don't get a chance to kind of get lost into like gear and like equipment and all that stuff because you're just like this is the best I can do right now. Like let's just
Yeah.
make a song. You know, we're here. I could sit here for days and choose the perfect microphone and the perfect. You know, like you can really get lost in it. So it's kind of nice when you're limited to your basement.
Yeah. I understand that feeling. I feel like because I'm a film student here at New Mexico State.
Nice.
And I feel like I would get distracted by the thought of needing the best equipment possible all the time and like having the best camera, only the best audio equipment. And like
No,
you
yeah,
get lost in just like
yeah,
doing something organic and just
totally.
creating because you can create.
Yeah, especially with video, dude. Video is crazy. Like you can lose your mind over that, but really you can if you have a good enough idea, you could shoot it on your phone. And if the idea is good enough, it doesn't even matter. Like you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like obviously a real camera and like, you know, black magic or whatever
Yeah,
you
it'll help.
but like but then it won't. I mean, there's movies that I've seen where it's great because it isn't so like pretentious or it's not so like it's not an
Mm,
A24 like intense movie. It's like a stupid funny movie, but it's better than the A24 movie because the idea is good. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
so yeah, and that goes for songs too, where it's just like there's no such thing as like you know like when you get to lyrics with the clever lyric writing and all that. Like the biggest song I have is me saying "Now You're Off My Mind" like
Hmm.
7 times, you know. So it's you know a lot of it has to just do with the feeling. Like if something feels good, you're good. You're in a good
Definitely.
spot. But it's hard to you know like believe that you're doing that because it's like
Yeah.
you always think
But
like this isn't good.
yeah, exactly. At times you definitely I feel like you could definitely feel it. It's like a gut feeling when you know like this idea,
Yeah,
this one is really good. I can feel it.
totally, totally, totally.
Um, so relating to film, Um, I was curious about your experience on the relatively short film
Yeah.
If We Run. I
Yeah.
rewatched it right before this
Oh,
because
cool.
it's been so long,
Mm.
and I think it's really cool. You got to act in it, you got to perform your songs instead of, I think you
Yeah.
mentioned in another interview, of doing like four separate videos. The
Yeah.
budget was a different situation. So you're like,
Mhm.
let's just do one film.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was that like for you getting to act and
It was the
perform all
best. I mean, it was like the best. It was my favorite experience I've ever had in music or anything because it was just the most creative element I'd ever been in and like headspace I was ever in. And you're with a team of people. So that was really fun. And I don't know. Yeah, it just felt like we were making this thing. It was just so, it was like when you make a project when you're in eighth grade and you like have to make a video with like four other people in your class.
that?
Like that feeling was there the whole time. And it was just fun to try something. And like you don't even care if it fails or anything because you care like about it, but you don't really care if it fails because you're just like so excited to just care
To,
about it getting done. Like you
yeah,
just want to
just
get
to
it
like
done.
do it.
Yeah, like to complete it for yourself. And then after that, you're like, okay. But yeah, it was awesome. It was amazing, dude. It was so much fun and like huge learning experience as far as what goes into making real movies or films or anything like that. And just really eye-opening and kind of like, set a new bar as far as like what it takes to kind of entertain myself in making a music video. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So like now when a music video idea
yeah.
comes up, I'm like,
Higher
how can
expectations.
we, yeah, like how can we push
Yeah,
it, how can it look better, or whatever, you know what I mean? So yeah, it was just a nice way to kind of rethink things for a little rather than like do the standard for music videos. Here we
yeah.
go. So yeah.
Especially, yeah, I definitely feel that being like an artist is like you have to test your limits in like other
Yeah.
art forms and not just, the one you do all the time. Like if you're
Right.
only making music, getting to do something like a film is like, oh, this is really cool. Like
Yeah.
how can I elevate my art in this
Sure.
form?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I know you also got to score the film,
Mhm.
obviously, and
Mhm.
you did a lot of the Foley for it.
Yeah.
What was I don't do a lot of sound design myself, although I'd
Yeah.
like to get into it because I,
Yeah.
I do want to get into making music.
Sure.
What was that like? I'm sure very separate from actually making music, doing Foley and stuff.
Yeah, I mean the Foley stuff was crazy. The Foley stuff was like it's funny because I think anyone can do it. It's just time. Like it took me so many hours and days and weeks of time. Um, but it was fun because it's like it makes the whole scene feel completely better or worse based on how you do it. And then scoring was just it is like writing a song. It was just a different way where it was like the idea for the song is right in front of you already, which is the scene. And then it's
Hmm.
like so all the emotion is there, and now you write a song around the emotion, which is really, really weird. But it was the same muscle memory as far as like, like how do I make this feel good? Like that's always the
Yeah.
goal of making any kind of sound. You know what I mean? So yeah, just sitting there for hours and like watching the scene play out and like playing a keyboard or a synth or a guitar and tweaking pedals and knobs and stuff and like
Hmm.
and so it was fun because the ideas are you could do anything. You could make something feel completely different if you completely
Just
abandon one idea and go
yeah.
to another. So it was really difficult, but so much fun because it was like you are like totally in control of it, more than the people who shot it with the cameras were. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
how it
You
sounds is
control
way
the
more
direction
important.
of emotion in a
Yeah,
way.
totally. So it
I
was great.
also yeah, I noticed in the very beginning of it, um, that first actress that gets
Mm.
out through the door.
Yeah.
In like the first few seconds, I think it's like the bass line. I forget which song it intros
Oh
to.
yeah.
I noticed I picked up on like the key that it was in, and I was like,
Mm.
oh, the song is coming on. I was like, I can feel the
Totally.
build and the rise to it. Was
Mhm.
that uh done by you, like that build up to that? Or did
Yeah,
someone
like it
like
was
recommend that transition?
I literally there was a lot of stuff that happened by accident that I noticed after was like, oh, maybe that wasn't an accident, but I wasn't aware of it in the moment. So yeah, the bendy bass line from the song French Pond, like I that's just the stems. Like I was running out of like sound ideas. So I just like pulled up the stems from the actual recording. I was like, what if I like took the bass line and like chopped it up and like slowed it down and put a ton of reverb on it
Mm-hmm.
and then it was like cool because it's also the song that plays in the movie, like in that next when she goes inside on the TV. So it was like a weird precursor thing, but I didn't know I was doing it. I was just kind of like, oh wow, okay. So things like that start happening where you start to it's like a mistake, but at the same time, like
You
you're doing it for so many hours that of course you came up with the idea to do that because like
yeah,
sitting in front of your screen for 10 hours, you know. So yeah, and then I started digging into that. So like whatever song was gonna play next or just played, I would take the stems of like just the drums or just a synth
start like
that and
building
like
up like
yeah, and like
kind of
tweak
like
it and
this
turn it into
grandiose type feeling of like the
yeah,
audience can like sense it.
right. So I turned it into like film scoring. Like I would take the stems of a normal rock song and like how can I use them to be like creepy or whatever and like so it was kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool. I loved the way you guys were able to incorporate your songs into the film,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
based on whatever location you were in. You figured out a way to make it like really aesthetic,
You're
especially
right.
for the cinematography. Um, that very last song you played in that house, that like with all the glass around it, it was at nighttime.
Yeah.
I It's very fresh in my mind, but somehow also it's not. Um,
Yeah.
but that song you were playing looks so good in that room.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah. It felt
all the
right.
performances are really unique in the way that like how you set up all your equipment and how you transitioned to actually where you are and where the film is going itself.
Right, right. Well, it was cool capturing the audio of the space we were truly in was like the biggest part of it, where I was like, oh, this is cool. You know, like let's pick this song for this location because it'll sound better in a house than it would like in a garage.
Oh,
So like you got to think about almost like the sonics of like truly engineering and recording something. So drums sound a certain way in a
mm-hmm.
garage, and then they sound a
Yeah,
certain way in a little wooden house. So, you know, like we picked the songs, and at the same time, just where's the story at? Like, oh, there's this crazy thing happening. Let's do
yeah,
this song because this one won't work there. So there was a lot of things where once you moved one thing, it ruined something else, and like
yeah, duh.
yeah, so it was a lot of that, but it was just so much fun to figure out. Again, like that's what's fun about it. It's just figuring stuff out.
Yeah. I love that. I love that about making movies. It's
Yeah,
just like nothing ever goes as you plan. It's just
no,
like
never.
something happens, you got to figure it out.
It's
Like you
great.
don't have time.
It's just problem solving. Yeah, I mean, like obviously it has a lot to do with not having like $1 billion budget, which gives you time.
Yeah,
But now I realize that's why movies are a lot of money. It's time. It's not like stuff. You know, you're not
the
physically
actual yeah.
yeah.
Um so I wanted a big question for me, because I recently watched it was a live performance you did at Austin City Limits Radio.
Mhm.
I love that video, and somehow it only has 60 views right now. Looking at it, and
Perfect.
all the songs you performed like sound so amazing with that, with your voice, like you manipulate it so well when you're performing.
Thanks. Thanks.
I wanted to ask you, what's your favorite song of your own? Do you have a favorite song to listen to or to perform in front of
Uh,
people?
yeah, I really like doing Kids in the Summer right now, acoustic especially, because it's just
Mhm.
this like slow motion thing where I get to like do it different every time. And it just like you really hear what I'm saying and feel it more, you know, and which that's all acoustic performances, that's how it goes. But yeah, so I'd say Kids in the Summer. Yeah.
Mhm. I think yeah, that's probably been my favorite one to hear from you
Cool.
when you're performing. It's really cool.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
probably become my favorite song of yours because
Nice.
that live performance is I
Yeah.
feel like I hear it in a different way
Yeah.
seeing that performance.
Awesome. Yeah.
Um trying to see if I had any other specific questions. I think that might have been all that I wrote down. I planned to have
Okay.
much less time with you because I think she
No,
said
yeah,
only
yeah.
10 minutes and I was like my heart was broken.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're good. I'm chilling. That's all good, dude.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time today.
For sure.
It was great to meet you and get to talk with you.
Yeah, you too, man. Yeah. Thank you for this. It was a great question. So yeah.
Yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your day and thank you for stopping with Crux.
You got it.
Thank you.
You go get another drink. I think I'll waste to tell you I'm fine. One more vodka soda, then you'll never.